Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Reshma Baral. She is here with us from down under, one of our friends from Australia. She is a transformational life coach and got into that really through some life experiences that I'll have her talk a little bit about and share. As a life coach, she works on helping people achieve their results by gaining clarity, consistency, and confidence in what it is that they do. And she lived through an abusive relationship, ended up in a very traumatic experience that was life-threatening, suffered from PTSD for a number of years, thought that magically, somehow, it would just go away. And I think so many people think that. And then realized she needed to be much more proactive in dealing with that. And so she discovered Tony Robbins and NLP and became a master NLP coach and has now begun coaching women. She began with women, looking at how do they develop self-confidence, and then now has expanded into also working with men. So with that, I will let you tell your story, Reshma.
Thank you so much for having me in this show, Lois. Really appreciate this opportunity. So my story goes back around about 6 years ago. So I was in an abusive relationship, as you mentioned. And so at the end of it, I almost lost my life because of the traumatic incident. You know, I almost lost my life. I don't want to go too much into the details of because it's just behind me. But yeah, I almost lost my life. And because of that traumatic incident, I suffered from PTSD. And as naive as I was, I didn't even know what that was for a long time because it was just like, because I never saw any counselor or anyone when after I went through it, because I kept myself so strong initially, because I'm that kind of person who just holds on very tight and well in a traumatic situation. And then so I thought I don't need anyone because I was doing quite well initially. And then after a while, when I put my guards down, that's when these symptoms started coming up, obviously, because I was no longer in that flight or fight response mode, I suppose, when I settled a little bit. And I didn't know what it was, because it was like, not, if it had happened straight away, I would probably, make sense. Or it was because of trauma. But then like after I actually, like a few months later, that's when these symptoms started coming, and then like really making it worse and worse and worse for me. And I almost even lost my job because I couldn't perform in my job as an accountant, because I'm also an accountant. It was one of my first jobs. And I remember like having a performance performance review, and my boss saying, Reshma, I know you've been through a lot, so it was a very hard decision for me whether I keep you or let you go, but I've chosen to keep you because I see that brilliance in you. And that's what he did for me. He gave me an opportunity, and I got an opportunity to prove myself. And so but I suffered still from PTSD in a long term. Like I started doing meditation and everything. So to control that, but I never quite healed from it. And I used to have nightmares all the time. And even after 3 years, I was still having nightmares. And those nightmares were powerful enough to make me live exactly in the same moment again. That same moment that I was really trying to move away from, it would bring me back. Pretty much it was my brain telling me, I need resolution on this. I need you to resolve this so that we can move forward. I didn't understand. Obviously, I didn't know that then. And that's when I started looking for answers, because I was thinking before that time will heal everything. Yeah, so I'll allow myself a bit of time. I have been through horrible things in my life. Just give me some time. I was trying to be kind to myself. And then I realized 3 years down the track, I was like, time hasn't healed anything. So that means that I need to do something about it. And so I started looking for answers. What would help me get out of this PTSD and these nightmares? And that's when I came across this book from Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. I'm pretty sure you've heard and you've read this book, right? It's just incredible. And then that's when I first came across to neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, because he explains about this a little bit in that book, and he had some simple techniques to get rid of your limiting beliefs and change your habits and stuff like that in that book. And I used those techniques and those questions to ask myself the question, what is it that is causing me to have these nightmares? And I found out that it was a limiting belief that I'm not safe, and I never felt safe. And that's why, I checked my references as well, where it's coming from and all of that. So because I never felt safe, that's why I was having all those nightmares. And I changed my references for that belief, and I changed my belief. I used affirmations, I used incantations to ingrain it in my brain. And then within a month, it was gone, like completely gone. And I knew with conviction inside me that I'm not going to have nightmares anymore, because I know I have settled it within me. And that was so powerful. It was like something that I struggled for 3 years. All of a sudden, within like a week or so, like I knew it inside that I'm not going to have any nightmares anymore. That kind of certainty inside, that kind of clarity inside, I was like, what is this neuro-linguistic programming? Right? So that's why I started digging into it, and I signed up for a course, a practitioner level course, and that completely changed who I was. It felt like I took down a burden of 40 kilos that I was carrying on my shoulders, just get it out and put it down there. And I felt so light and so free and so much more confident. And I could see things better. I could see things in a better perspective. And I saw things that life was not happening to me. Life was happening for me to come to that point and be able to be liberated in that point of time. And that's when I decided that I wanted to give this transformation, the gift of transformation, to other people, because there are so many people who are struggling like me, right? And that's why I wanted to help others as well, because now that I have the skill in my hand, why not make a good use of it? And so when I looked at who's the best person that I can help, I thought someone who struggled like myself, who've been through abuse and trauma, and they have PTSD and they have depression and all those kind of things. I started serving women who have been through abuse and trauma. I did that for a year. And then I moved on to helping people with confidence, like building their self-confidence and excelling in their careers, achieving that work-life balance and being happy. So I focus more on that now, but I still work with a lot of clients who have been through trauma, because trauma is just so common. It doesn't have to be a massive physical incident for you to have trauma, right? So I still work with clients who have been through trauma and help them overcome all the side effects of trauma. So that's my story.
So from that, Reshma, you have developed a process that you take people through that really helps them develop a self-confidence and deals with these fears and anxiety and depression and the PTSD. So what's the process that you use that you've developed?
Yeah, the process is most of the times what I use in my one-on-one coaching is timeline therapy, which is a very powerful therapy from neuro-linguistic programming. And so in this therapy, what we do is we go back to the first incident that person started having this negative emotion. For example, fear. Like when was the first incident in your life that you actually had this incident, this emotion? And then we go into there, and then we look. I facilitate my clients to look at it in a different perspective so that they get different learnings from it. You see, because most of our experience is like, it's about learnings, like what did we learn from that experience, and then we are implementing it in our real life, right? So for example, if a child puts a hand on the fire, they know that it burns, it hurts, and that's why they are never going to put their hand on the fire again, right? And that is what happens with every single incident in our life. Like whenever something happens in your life, you take certain learnings out of it, and then you implement it, and it shapes your direction and your actions in the future. And so in order to change your action, in order to change your behavior, and also in order to change your perception about things, you have to go back to the first incident that caused you to think this way in the first place. So we change the perception in that first incident, and we change that perception and remove that negative emotion. Sorry, I always get confused. So remove that limiting belief and negative emotions from that first incident, and then from all the way from there to now, we remove the fear. Let's say if we are dealing with fear, we remove fear from everything from that moment, that first incident till today. And then that person completely sees things in a different way, and they have different positive learnings, and they feel so much more empowered because they have let go of that fear. They will not be able to feel that fear at all in that moment in their body, because it just vanishes from their body. And so it's very, very powerful. And then I take them to the future as well and see how they are going to act in those particular moments. And that helps them with their anxiety and their insecurity, everything in the future as well. A lot of people are fearful about what's going to happen in the future, right? And so when I take them through this process, they know exactly what to look at and how to handle this situation. So that's what I do. Another thing is I help them really be responsible for their emotional states and manage their emotional state as well, because emotions are very important part of our human beings, our existence on a daily basis. And how we feel at a given moment decides how we act and how we show up, right? And so a lot of people, when they because they are so emotionally and chemically addicted to the negative emotions of fear or guilt or unhappiness or sadness, and so when I teach them how to be emotionally stable and regulate their emotions and be more independent that way, and that empowers them massively as well, because a lot of my clients coming from an abusive or a traumatic background, they are emotionally dependent on someone else to feel validated, to feel loved, to feel worthy. And I teach them how to just not rely on someone else for that emotional stability. Like, you can have it within you. And so I teach them that, and that empowers them massively as well. I also use hypnotherapy. So hypnotherapy for severe anxiety and depression related stuff that timeline therapy alone cannot produce the results. If there is any, then I use hypnotherapy as an added bonus, and I take them through that healing process. So that's the process I use.
Amazing. So as you're talking, one of the things that struck me is during COVID, but then now as we've come out of COVID as well, I'm hearing still a lot of anxiety because people don't know what it's going to be like going back to work. We keep, in the United States, we have pockets that have resurgence of COVID again, and so new lockdowns again, and cautions being implemented. And as people look at going back to work, the question is, some people will some workplaces are hybrid, where some will go back to work, some will stay home. Some are rotating that, so you go in and out. Others have decided to remain virtual for a period of time yet. So there's that uncertainty of, what does that mean? And how stable is my company? Is my company going to come through this strongly so I have a position? So taking a look at what you've done with dealing with fear and anxiety, how do you approach that, and how would you suggest that people begin to frame this new time of uncertainty that we're entering?
Oh, it's a big, big uncertain time, and a lot of people have problems with that. So my approach to this is that, knowing that myself as a human being, I am a resilient creature of nature. I'm very powerful. I am very adaptable. We have been, right? We have come through so much, and this has happened in the last century and the century before that. We have been in this. We have been through it. We have been through massive disasters. We have come across. So you need to have this belief in yourself and know that we are adaptable, we are responsible, and we will get through this. So that certainty inside you, that no matter what, I will make it through, that has a massive force in helping you move forward. When it comes to jobs and everything, yes, totally, it is a little bit of fear, like especially like if you feel like you're going to lose your job, whether you're going to get a new job or not. But you know what, having that faith inside you that no matter what, I will be okay. This situation is temporary. this situation will be over. It's not going to last forever. And even if it does, let's say, like for argument's sake, if it lasts for a long time, I will find ways. We have always found ways, right? As human beings, we will find way. Like, for example, a lot of people used to work from office, and like, look how quickly we have adapted to working from home using the internet. We have pivoted ourselves so well to this pandemic, and we used to go out and to meet our friends, and now we arranged virtual coffees and meet our friends virtually on a FaceTime or or a Facebook video, whatever it is. That, like, we have found new ways of connecting with people. We have found new ways of surviving. We have found new ways of doing things. And so if you lose that job, you will find a job eventually, because if it is something is a must for you, then there is no other option other than getting it, right? So if you need to work, you'll find a way. It may not be exactly that same work. You'll find another job similar, or you'll adapt yourself to finding a different job. So it all comes down to having that certainty inside you that no matter what, I'm going to survive this. No matter what, I'm going to find a way, and I'm going to make through. And that I think is what people need to hold on to in this time of uncertainty.
Right. To have that sense of certainty, you also have to have a clarity about who you are as a person. Do you, and how do you deal with that?
In terms of getting the clarity, this is the question I ask myself. Like, this is for myself.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear you.
So this is the question that I ask myself for clarity, and my clients as well. So I would tell them, if someone was to take away everything from you today, like, do you believe in yourself that you will be okay? And that really makes people question, because if someone was to take away my job, my home, my car, everything that I ever have that belongs to me or I have known, then will I still be okay? Will I still be resilient enough, right? Like, to get back on track and build myself back? And if the answer is yes, that's when you have the certainty. And if the answer is no, then I'll facilitate people through asking various questions and using metaphors and using my own story to give them that certainty that, yes, absolutely, they can build themselves through, because your knowledge inside you is not going anywhere, right? The knowledge, your experiences, your personal, like, whatever you have learned throughout your entire life, all of that is still inside you. So take away my house away. I know how to search for a house. I know, like, I may have to find a place to rent or find a job at the first place, but I have those skills already. And I'm just going to put my skills to use to build myself back up again. And so once you have that kind of, once you see that you have everything inside you to build yourself back again, that certainty kind of gets established, and then that fear kind of gets removed, because then you know that you can do this.
It's amazing how that sense of hope that you can really prevail is so critical to that human sense of survival. And we have an innate need or desire, I think, to survive, but we don't always think that we have the skills to be able to do that. So are there clients, Reshma, that you cannot work with, that your process just simply can't work?
Well, there are people who I cannot work with, and those are who are not committed to making a change. Those people who are not absolutely 100% in, and they don't trust, because coaching is like a delicate relationship of trust. If you cannot trust your coach, then the coach cannot provide you with the results. Like, for example, if, for example, like someone like a client, they did not believe that the therapy that I was using is powerful enough, or in my abilities as a coach, then they will sabotage themselves from receiving anything from me. I could not penetrate that wall, because they've created a wall there, and I just cannot go through. And those are the people that I cannot work with, and I cannot provide them with results. And this is what I say to my prospects in the first call when I have with them. I say, look, how committed are you? If you're not committed, it's not for you. If you're just trying to dabble around and find out what working and not, it doesn't work. Either you're full in or you're full out. I don't like to play games like that. That's what I say. And those people who are not committed, they just go away, and I'm happy, instead of like wasting my time and wasting their time and investment and money and everything in someone who's not 100%. So yeah, that's the people that I can't work with.
So, Reshma, one of the things that strikes me as I'm listening to you is many of the people who are listening to our podcast are leaders in business. They're upper management. They're thinking about moving on. What's the next chapter of their life, legacy? There's fear, uncertainty that goes with that, what they've been used to in terms of controlling their environment and having a system around them is soon about to evaporate, and they've got to create it almost from an entrepreneurial type of spirit that they've not had to experience. And so when people are going through major changes and transitions, what are some of the thoughts that you have in terms of guiding people so that they can continue in that very confident, certain, clear space that they want to be in?
Well, the first thing to have that clarity is knowing your purpose. So for what purpose are you doing this? So knowing your why statement, right? And so whenever there is this uncertainty that tries to kick in, you always refer back to your why. So why am I doing this, right? And then having that clear goals and having clear action plans towards it. Sometimes, yes, you don't know what your next step is because you have an overall goal and then you don't know what next to do. For example, when I started my coaching journey, it was such a different industry for me because I am an accountant. As I said, I'm a chartered accountant. I've been there for 4 or 5 years. And when I started coaching out of passion, it was a completely new thing for me. I had absolutely no idea. But the one thing I was clear on was my why. Why am I doing this? I was very clear on why I'm passionate about coaching, why I want to do this. And that kept on giving me that motivation and that drive to keep on doing the next step. And sometimes, you know what, you don't need to know even what the last step is. Just take one step at a time. Just, do what you can do to move forward. So as long as you're moving forward, you're making progress. And as long as you're making progress, you are happy and you feel like you are in track of something, and that's what gives you the motivation. When you don't take that step forward because you don't know whether it's right or wrong and you're questioning yourself, that kind of stops the momentum. And when you stop the momentum, it kind of stops you and demotivates you, and you feel lost and overwhelmed and all sorts of things. So what I would say is, even if you don't know what the 10 steps forward looks like, just know your next step and know what you need to do, what is a bare minimum that you need to do to be successful in this. For me, for example, in my coaching business, the bare minimum that I had to do, that I knew, was be consistent in my social media posts, be consistent in my for my existing clients, give them the maximum value. And anyone that comes in touch with me who asks me questions as I was starting out, I gave my best to them. So giving my best and being consistent with my social media posts and following up anyone and everyone who just likes or comments my post and stuff like that. So that was the bare minimum for me to get started, and that's what I focused on. I didn't know what was there 2 years down the track for me, and I didn't know I would be where I am now when I started. So sometimes it's hard to have a vision of where you are going to land, but what you need to be clear on is why you're doing this and what is the next step. So that's what I would say.
It's always true, isn't it? If we know our mission and purpose in life, it is so much easier to navigate because you have a stable plumb line that you operate from. And when we lose sight of our purpose and mission, we suddenly begin to flounder. And I think so many problems arise at that. Last thoughts that you have that you want to share with our audience? We've talked for half an hour. It's gone very quickly. So last thoughts or comments that you would like to share with our audience?
One last thing that I would definitely like to share is just trust yourself. We always doubt ourselves, our own abilities. Just trust yourself and stay consistent with whatever it is that you're doing, and do what it is that you're doing with pride and confidence, and you will get there. If you don't trust yourself, first step, you're sabotaging yourself from getting that success or achieving that goal or whatever, or even achieving that happiness. So just trust yourself and know that you have everything that you need within you for whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
So, Reshma, thank you so much for your time and for being with us. It's wonderful that there are coaches like you that have had really the experience that you've had, as unfortunate as it is, that's really brought you to be able to share these insights with so many people. So I thank you for that. And those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast today, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Louis, for this wonderful opportunity. I look forward to listening to this.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.